the largest archipelago on Earth. 17,000 islands scattered across 5,000 kilometers of ocean. 130 active volcanoes, more than any other country on Earth. A place where the seafloor holds more species of coral than any other body of water on the planet. Where a lake sitting inside an active volcano is so acidic it dissolves metal. Where men carry loads heavier than their own body weight through clouds of toxic gas to make $13 a day. And where the largest lizard alive stalks prey that weighs half a ton. That is Indonesia. Not the Indonesia of resort hotels and Instagram sunsets, though those exist too. The other Indonesia. The one that operates entirely on its own geological and biological terms. Indifferent to human comfort, producing environments that should not be possible within one country's borders. A country so extreme in every dimension, in its geology, its ecology, its biology, its human stories, that spending any serious time in it requires a fundamental recalibration of what you thought nature was capable of. This is Shadow Atlas. If this is your first video here, hit subscribe. I make documentaries about places like this every few weeks, and Indonesia is not a country you exhaust in one episode. Let's go. To understand Indonesia, the first thing you have to grasp is that it is not a country in the conventional sense. It is a geological event that people happen to live on. The Eurasian Plate, the Australian Plate, the Pacific Plate, and the Philippine Sea Plate all converge in this region, producing the most volcanically and seismically active landscape on the surface of the Earth. The islands that make up Indonesia did not form gradually over millions of years in some stable, predictable process. They erupted. They are still erupting. Tambora, which sits on the island of Sumbawa, produced the largest volcanic eruption in recorded human history in 1815. An eruption so large it sent sulfur dioxide into the upper atmosphere and caused global temperatures to drop, producing what historians call the year without a summer across Europe and North America. Krakatoa, in the strait between Sumatra and Java, erupted in 1883 with a force that launched debris 80 kilometers into the air and generated a sound heard 4,800 kilometers away in Australia, the loudest noise in recorded human history. And since Krakatoa collapsed, a new volcano has been growing in its place. Anak Krakatau, child of Krakatoa, has been building itself out of the sea since 1927 and is currently an active, growing volcano in a location where Krakatoa once stood. There are 130 active volcanoes in Indonesia. If you drew a line along the chain of islands from Sumatra through Java, Bali, Lombok, Sumbawa, and further east, you would be drawing a line along one of the most concentrated chains of active volcanoes anywhere on the planet. The Indonesian archipelago is both a consequence of and a continuing participant in the tectonic violence that shapes this corner of the world. The mountains are not decorative. The earthquakes are not anomalies. The volcanic eruptions are not emergencies. They are the baseline condition of the place, the perpetual operating state of a landscape that is still being made. And within this geological violence, some of the most extraordinary natural phenomena on Earth have developed, including one that is, by most accounts, the single most visually astonishing thing any active volcano anywhere in the world produces. In East Java, near the border between two regencies, there is a volcano complex called Ijen. The broader complex is enormous, a caldera approximately 20 kilometers wide with multiple craters and volcanic cones inside it, a landscape of coffee plantations on the outer slopes, and increasingly raw volcanic terrain as you move inward. At the heart of the complex, at an elevation of approximately 2,400 meters, is the crater called Kawa Ijen. The name means Ijen crater in Indonesian, and what sits inside it is unlike anything else on the surface of the Earth. Kawa Ijen contains the largest highly acidic volcanic lake in the world. The lake is approximately 1 kilometer in diameter and 200 meters deep. Its color, visible from the crater rim above, is a vivid turquoise green. Not the color of healthy tropical water, but the color of a chemical solution, which is what it is. The lake has a pH that can drop as low as 0.2. To put that number in context, battery acid typically has a pH of around 0.5. The water of Kawa Ijen, in periods of maximum acidity, approaches the corrosive concentration of battery acid. Any metal object placed in the lake will dissolve. Any organic material, given enough time, will be destroyed. The color is the product of the extreme acidity combined with dissolved metals, primarily iron and other heavy minerals that the volcanic gases leach continuously from the surrounding rock. But the lake is not what makes Kawa Ijen the most visually astonishing volcanic phenomenon on Earth. The lake is extraordinary. What burns at night at the base of the crater among the fumaroles at the lake's edge is impossible. Sulfuric gases escape continuously from cracks in the rock near the waterline. These gases emerge at temperatures that can reach 600 degrees Celsius under pressure into the oxygen-rich atmosphere. And when they ignite, which they do continuously in the darkness, they burn not red or orange, not the color of fire as any human experience of fire has established. They burn electric blue, an intense, vivid, unnatural blue, the color of something digital or artificial, the color that belongs in a science fiction film rather than the interior of an active volcano in East Java. The blue fire, api biru in Indonesian, is the combustion of the sulfuric gases themselves. As the gases burn, some of them condense before fully igniting and flow downward as liquid sulfur, which also burns blue, creating rivers of electric blue light running down the crater face toward the acid lake. In long exposure photographs, these rivers are captured as streams of glowing blue against the black rock, and the images look so improbable that photographers who publish them routinely have to explain to their audiences that no color filters were used. The blue is real. The rivers of burning liquid are real. This is what a volcanic crater looks like in the dark when sulfur is burning. Kawa Ijen is the largest blue fire area in the world. The only other location where this phenomenon occurs is a remote area in Ethiopia. Everywhere else, it does not exist. This is specific to here, to this volcano, to this combination of volcanic chemistry and atmospheric conditions. But there is another dimension to Kawa Ijen that is inseparable from the blue fire, and that changes what the place means the moment you understand it. The same volcanic activity that produces the blue fire also deposits sulfur continuously around the lake's edge. Solid sulfur, bright yellow, cooling into chunks that can be broken and collected. And there are men who come here in the dark, hours before any tourist arrives, and collect that sulfur for money. The miners of Kawa Ijen have been working this crater since the 1960s. There are approximately 200 of them, and their work is among the most physically demanding and chemically hazardous of any labor still performed by hand anywhere in the world. They descend 300 meters into the crater on a path so steep its gradient reaches 60 degrees in places to the edge of the acid lake, where the sulfuric gas clouds are dense enough to cause immediate eye and respiratory irritation without protection. Many of the miners use simple wet cloths tied across their faces. Some have gas masks, often donated by tourists who felt the inadequacy of the exchange. They were getting the blue fire view. The miners were getting the lung damage. At the base of the crater, the miners use iron rods to break solid sulfur from the deposits near the fumaroles. A network of ceramic pipes installed by the mining company channels the volcanic gases downward, where they condense into liquid sulfur that drips and pools and solidifies into chunks that glow yellow in the blue light. The miners collect these chunks, break them further, and load them into bamboo baskets carried on wooden yokes balanced across their shoulders. The loads range from 70 to 90 kilograms. Some experienced miners carry more than 100 kilograms, loads that significantly exceed their own body weight. They carry this weight up 300 meters of 45 to 60 degree slope in sulfur gas, through air that tastes of chemistry and smells of industry and burns the eyes even through wet cloth. At the top of the crater rim, the work is not finished. They then carry their loads for a further 3 kilometers down the mountain to the weighing station. Most miners make this journey twice a day. The sulfur sells for approximately 600 Indonesian rupiah per kilogram, less than $0.25 per pound. A good day earns approximately $13. The locals call sulfur the devil's gold. It is yellow, it comes from deep inside the earth through volcanic processes. It corrodes and burns and poisons, and it is valuable, used in sugar refining, in fertilizers, in chemical production, in the manufacture of matches and gunpowder and cosmetics and rubber. The chain between the man carrying 90 kilograms of it up a crater wall in East Java, breathing sulfur dioxide through a wet cloth, and the finished consumer products in markets worldwide is one of those supply chains that functions precisely because its upstream cost is invisible to its downstream consumers. One miner, reflecting on 3 years of work in the crater and the visible scars on his shoulder from where the bamboo yoke wore into him, said, "These are the scars on my body. Every day for 3 years I was carrying sulfur from Mount Ijen 3 times a day." That direct quote describes the physical reality more specifically than any amount of commentary. The blue fire is genuinely extraordinary. It is one of the most visually spectacular natural phenomena on the planet. And seeing it in person, the blue rivers flowing down the black rock, the acid lake beyond them, the gas clouds drifting through the beam of a headlamp, rewires something in the brain about what fire can be and what geology can produce. And it is also a workplace. And the people who work there are doing something that deserves to be held in the mind alongside the visual spectacle, not separated from it. Kawa Ijen is not a light show. It is a place where human endurance and geological extremity operate in the same physical space, inseparably. Now travel west along Java toward the center of the island, into the highland volcanic landscape that gives East Java its specific visual character: steep green slopes, plantation agriculture, mist that rolls in from the mountains in the morning and burns off slowly under a tropical sun. The roads climb through tea estates and coffee farms on terrain that the underlying geology has made extraordinarily fertile. Volcanic soil is among the richest agricultural substrate on Earth, and Java's density of human settlement, it is one of the most densely populated large islands in the world, is partly explained by what the volcanoes give back through their ash and their mineral-rich flows. In the heart of this highland region is one of the most visually dramatic landscapes in Southeast Asia. The Tangga caldera is a collapsed volcanic complex that formed approximately 150,000 years ago when an ancient stratovolcano of enormous proportions erupted catastrophically and its summit collapsed inward. What remained was a caldera approximately 16 kilometers wide, its rim forming a ring of steep walls rising 200 to 600 meters above the floor. And on that floor, produced by later volcanic activity in the thousands of years since the original collapse, there is a landscape that has no equivalent in the world. It is called the Sea of Sand, Segarawedi in Javanese, Lautan Pasir in Indonesian. Inside the ancient caldera, a desert has formed, a volcanic desert, covered in grey-black volcanic sand that stretches for 5,250 hectares at an altitude of approximately 2,100 meters. This is not sand in the beach sense. It is fine volcanic material, ash and pumice and ground lava, the accumulated residue of millennia of eruptions from the volcanic cones that have risen from the caldera floor since the original collapse. There are no dunes. The surface is flat and open, and the volcanic cones rise from it like models of volcanoes placed on a table, each one distinct, each one with its own geological personality. The most famous of these is Mount Bromo, named for Brahma, the Hindu god of creation, a naming that carries specific significance here. Bromo rises only about 100 meters from the caldera floor itself, though its summit sits at 2,329 meters above sea level because the caldera floor is already at substantial altitude. The crater of Bromo is active. It emits a continuous column of white sulfurous smoke that hangs over the caldera in calm conditions, and it erupts periodically, most recently and significantly in 2010, when ash reached 18,000 feet and multiple airlines cancelled flights to Bali. Since 1767, more than 60 eruptive phases of Bromo have been recorded. But the most extraordinary thing about Bromo is not its volcanic activity. It is what happens here once a year, on the 14th day of the 12th month of the traditional Tangga Hindu calendar. The Tangga people are one of the few significant Hindu communities remaining on Java. They are believed to be descendants of the Majapahit Empire, the great Hindu-Buddhist kingdom that dominated much of maritime Southeast Asia from the 13th to the 16th century, and whose cultural legacy survives most visibly in Bali. When Islam spread through Java from the coast inward during the 15th and 16th centuries, the Majapahit Empire's final communities retreated to the mountains. The Tangga people settled in the volcanic highlands around Bromo and maintained their religious practices, their language, and their specific identity as the descendants of an empire that the lowland populations had largely forgotten. Their relationship with Bromo is theological. The volcano is sacred, not metaphorically sacred in the way that many mountains are called sacred, but functionally and actively sacred, the center of a living religious practice that has continued for 6 centuries. The origin story of the Tangga people involves a royal couple who prayed at Bromo for children, and were promised many children on the condition that the youngest would be sacrificed into the crater. The youngest, a son named Kasuma, honored this promise, throwing himself into the volcano, and from that sacrifice the tradition of Yajna Kasada was born. Once a year, on the night of the ceremony, the Tangga people gather by the thousands. They come from the villages scattered across the volcanic highlands, dressed in traditional clothing, carrying baskets of offerings, rice, fruit, vegetables, flowers, livestock. The procession moves in the dark across the sea of sand toward Bromo, and the scene is one of the most visually arresting ritual landscapes in Asia. Thousands of people crossing a volcanic desert at altitude, carrying torches and offerings, moving toward an actively smoking volcano, the crater rim above them glowing faintly with volcanic warmth. At the crater rim, the priests pray and the offerings are thrown into the volcano. Chickens, goats, vegetables, flowers, money, all of it into the active crater, into the smoke and the chemical heat below. And from the slopes of the caldera wall, because this is Tangga. And nothing about this ceremony is simple. Other people wait below the crater rim with nets and outstretched hands, trying to catch the offerings as they are thrown in. They scramble down toward the crater in the chaotic minutes after the offerings are made, risking the rim and the gas and the loose volcanic material to retrieve what has been thrown. The mountain has been given what it is owed. The scene at Yajna Kasada, the darkness, the smoke from the crater, the crowds across the sand sea, the torchlight, the sound of Javanese drums and traditional hymns from the priests, is one of the most remarkable ceremonies in the world, performed in one of the most remarkable landscapes in the world, by people who have been performing it without interruption for 600 years. And then, before dawn, the motorbikes start, and the jeeps cross the sand, and the tourists arrive for sunrise at Bromo. And the ceremony is over until next year, and the volcano smokes quietly in the morning light, indifferent to all of it. Now, leave Java entirely. Fly east past Bali, past Lombok, past Sumbawa and Flores, to a cluster of islands in the eastern part of Indonesia's Lesser Sunda, chain where the Pacific's oceanic plate is still actively sliding beneath the Eurasian plate, and the remnants of that ancient geological process have created the most specific and unusual terrestrial ecosystem in the country. Komodo Island is 22 miles long and 5.5 miles wide. It has roughly 1,800 human residents. And it is home to approximately 1,700 of the roughly 5,700 remaining Komodo dragons, the largest lizards alive on Earth, the last members of a lineage of giant monitor lizards that once lived across both Indonesia and Australia, now reduced to 5 small islands in the Lesser Sunda chain, and that specific 5 alone. The facts about the Komodo dragon are the kind that require repeating, because the first time most people hear them, they seem like exaggerations. The largest verified individual reached 3.13 meters in length, just over 10 feet, and weighed 166 kilograms, approximately 366 pounds. The largest specimen in Komodo National Park was longer than a small car and heavier than a large refrigerator. Males grow to an average of around 2.5 meters and roughly 70 kilograms. They can run at approximately 20 kilometers per hour in short bursts. They can detect the scent of blood from almost 10 kilometers away, using a forked tongue that samples the air and processes chemical information the way a snake does, but with considerably more sensory resolution. Their bite is venomous. This is a contested point in the scientific literature. There is genuine, ongoing debate about the role of venom versus bacteria versus physical trauma in their killing mechanism. But what is documented is that the dragon's lower jaw contains glands that produce anticoagulant proteins, and that their bite prevents blood from clotting normally in their prey. An animal bitten by a Komodo dragon and not immediately killed does not simply recover and escape. The blood loss continues. The wound does not close properly. The dragon follows, patiently, sometimes for days, as the prey animal weakens. The dragon can detect the dying animal from kilometers away. The distance between predator and prey means nothing when the predator has effectively unlimited patience and a sensory system that turns the landscape into a map of blood. Komodo dragons are cannibalistic. The young spend their first 4 years living in trees, not because the savanna below is unsafe, but because the animals below are adults that will eat them. Only when they reach approximately 1.2 meters in length, large enough to risk it, do they come down and begin living on the ground. Adults have been observed eating other adults. The stomach of a Komodo dragon can expand to accommodate food weighing up to 80% of its own body weight in a single feeding. The jaws unhinge. The stomach expands. The entire process is closer to what a snake does than to what a mammalian carnivore does, and it produces an animal that can go weeks between meals after consuming something the size of a small deer. Female Komodo dragons can reproduce through parthenogenesis. They can produce offspring without a male. The offspring produced through parthenogenesis are always male. This is an evolutionary adaptation to low population density and isolation, a mechanism that allows a female stranded alone on an island with no males to produce male offspring who can then mate with her, restoring a sexual reproductive population. The biology of it is simultaneously elegant and disquieting. There are fewer than 3,500 Komodo dragons left in the wild. The species is listed as endangered. The primary threat is not hunting. The dragons have been legally protected since 1915. But habitat loss and the potential long-term impact of rising sea levels on the small islands they occupy. Climate models suggest that between 30 and 70% of the species' current habitat could be lost by 2040. The largest lizard on Earth, an animal with no evolutionary competition on its islands, an apex predator in every sense of the word, is endangered because the ocean is rising. The experience of being near Komodo dragons in their habitat is not comfortable in the way that most wildlife encounters are comfortable. The guides in Komodo National Park carry long forked sticks, not weapons exactly, but deterrents, and they position themselves with clear awareness of where the dragons are relative to the group. The dragons move more quickly than expected, with a rolling, swinging gait that covers ground at a deceptive pace. They lie still for long periods, seemingly torpid, and then move with abrupt decisiveness. The tongue flickers constantly, sampling the air, mapping the landscape of chemical information that the dragon navigates. an encounter with a large adult in open savanna, the dragon's yellow tongue flickering in your direction, its armored skin dry and scaled in the dry season grass, is one of those wildlife encounters that leaves a physical impression distinct from the visual one. The visual impression is remarkable. The physical impression is something closer to recognition. The recognition of a predator that is not particularly concerned about your presence in a landscape that was not designed with your safety in mind. And travel further east, past Flores, past the Banda Sea, to the very far northwest of the island of New Guinea in the province of West Papua, to a cluster of islands so remote and so biologically extraordinary that it has been called the crown jewel of the Coral Triangle, the heart of the world's marine biodiversity, and by researchers who have spent their careers studying marine ecosystems globally, simply the most biodiverse place in the ocean. Raja Ampat means the Four Kings. The name refers to the four main islands of the archipelago: Misul, Salawati, Batanta and Waigeo, around which cluster more than 1,500 smaller islands, cays and reefs. The archipelago covers approximately 40,000 square kilometers of land and sea, sits just south of the equator, and is crossed by one of the most powerful continuous ocean current systems on Earth. The Indonesian throughflow is the world's largest movement of seawater. It is generated by a difference in sea level between the Pacific Ocean to the east and the Indian Ocean to the southwest, a difference of approximately 20 to 30 millimeters, produced by the Earth's rotation that drives an enormous and continuous flow of water through the Indonesian archipelago from the Pacific toward the Indian Ocean. At Raja Ampat, this throughflow produces two things simultaneously: nutrient upwellings that draw deep water nutrients toward the surface, and a dispersal mechanism that spreads larvae and eggs from Raja Ampat's reefs across the wider region. The combination functions as nature's most efficient biological supply chain. Nutrients flow in, and life is produced in extraordinary abundance, and the products of that abundance are distributed by the current across thousands of kilometers of ocean. The result is numbers that have to be repeated to be believed. The first comprehensive scientific survey of Raja Ampat's marine biodiversity was conducted in 2001 and recorded nearly 1,000 tropical fish species in a single assessment, a record that broke all previous measurements for species diversity per unit area. Since then, comprehensive surveys have documented more than 1,800 species of reef fish, 550 species of coral, 700 species of mollusks, 17 species of marine mammals including sperm whales, orcas and dugongs, 5 species of sea turtles and multiple species of manta ray. The Caribbean Sea, for comparison, has approximately 300 species of reef-building corals and 1,000 fish species. Raja Ampat has nearly twice the coral diversity, and more than 75% of all coral species known to exist anywhere in the world. There are sharks at Raja Ampat that walk on land. This is not a metaphor. Epaulet sharks, a small species of reef shark, have evolved the ability to use their pectoral fins as proto-legs, allowing them to move across reef flats exposed at low tide in search of prey. They breathe air and can survive out of water for short periods, crossing stretches of exposed reef that no other shark can access. They are one of the evolutionary experiments that this ecosystem, with its exceptional diversity and its comparative isolation, has produced and preserved. There are also pygmy seahorses, creatures so small that the first specimens were discovered by accident, attached to sea fans in a research station tank, invisible to the naked eye until someone looked very carefully. 5 species of pygmy seahorse are documented at Raja Ampat. Several of them were unknown to science before surveys of this archipelago began. Their camouflage is so complete that they match the specific texture and color of the individual sea fan they live on. Different individuals on different species of sea fan display entirely different color patterns. They are animals that have solved the problem of visibility so completely that they were essentially undetectable to human observation for most of human history. The coral reefs of Raja Ampat have shown a remarkable resistance to coral bleaching, the thermal stress response that is damaging reefs across the world as ocean temperatures rise. The reasons for this resilience are not fully understood, but current theory focuses on the genetic diversity of the reef organisms and the consistent flow of cool, nutrient-rich water from the through-flow, which modulates surface temperatures. In an era when reef systems globally are under severe thermal stress, Raja Ampat's reefs appear to be among the most likely to persist. They are not merely the most biodiverse reefs in the world. They may also be among the most durable. Reaching Raja Ampat is not simple. It requires a flight to Sorong in West Papua, itself a multi-hop journey from most international airports, then a boat transfer to whichever island or resort you are heading to. The journey is long by any standard, and the length of the journey is part of what has protected the place. The same remoteness that makes it inconvenient to visit has kept it from the mass tourism pressure that has degraded other reef systems globally. The reefs here look, as one marine biologist has noted, the way reefs might have looked when Jacques Cousteau first started exploring them in the 1950s. The abundance is extraordinary. The color intensity underwater is extraordinary. The density of life, the sheer number of things moving and living and competing and coexisting in any given square meter of reef is extraordinary. Wilson's bird of paradise lives in the forests of Waigeo and nearby Gam Island. The male is among the most improbably decorated birds in the world. A cobalt blue bare head, a crimson back, a velvet black chest, and 2 spiral tail feathers that curl outward from the body like ornamental wire. The Wilson's is one of the birds of paradise specific to this corner of the world, endemic to Raja Ampat, found nowhere else. The forests above the reefs hold animals that are as extraordinary as what lies below them, and the combination, diving into one of the world's most biodiverse coral ecosystems in the morning, watching birds of paradise in the forest in the afternoon, produces a sensory and intellectual density that very few places on Earth can match. Here is what Indonesia actually is, stated plainly. It is the country with the highest number of active volcanoes on Earth. It is the country with the most biodiverse marine ecosystem on Earth. It is the country with the only electric blue volcanic fire phenomenon visible at night. It is home to the largest lizard species alive. It is home to the world's largest highly acidic volcanic lake. It contains one of the world's most extraordinary ongoing religious ceremonies, performed by a Hindu community that has maintained its practices unchanged for 6 centuries inside a collapsed volcanic caldera. And its total count of species, plant, animal, marine, makes it the second most biodiverse country on the planet, trailing only Brazil. This is the country that sits between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, the country whose archipelago is large enough to stretch, if laid over Europe, from Ireland to the Caspian Sea. It is a country that is still being made by the volcanoes that are still erupting, by the tectonic plates that are still grinding, by the biological processes that are still discovering new species in its waters and its forests. Drop a comment below. Which of these places would you put on your list first? And where in the world are you watching from right now? I read every single comment. Indonesia is not finished, not in this video and not as a country. There is more here than any series of documentaries can hold. There is a specific quality to the Kawa Ijen crater that photographs prepare you for in the visual dimension and completely fail to prepare you for in the physical one. The photographs show the blue fire, those extraordinary, improbable rivers of electric blue running down black rock toward the acid lake, the gas clouds catching the blue light and diffusing it into the surrounding air. What the photographs cannot show is what the air does to your body. The sulfur dioxide that fills the crater in waves is not a neutral experience. At low concentrations, it smells like struck matches. At higher concentrations, it causes the eyes to water immediately and the throat to tighten. At the concentrations present near the fumaroles at the base of the crater, prolonged exposure without respiratory protection causes permanent lung damage. This is documented. The miners of Kawa Ijen have among the highest rates of respiratory disease and reduced lung function of any occupational group anywhere in the world. Their life expectancy is measurably shorter than that of people living in the villages below the mountain. When tourists descend into the crater in the hours before dawn to see the blue fire, and they do descend tens of thousands every year, they are given the option to rent a gas mask at the base camp. The masks make a difference. Experienced visitors describe the descent into the heavier gas clouds as immediately uncomfortable even with masks and immediately dangerous without them. The miners work in these conditions, often with only a damp cloth for years. Some of them have worked here for more than 25 years. They carry their loads and breathe the air and collect their $13 a day. The mining company has installed ceramic pipes at the active fumaroles to channel the volcanic gases and promote the formation of solid sulfur. This is a management system designed to increase yield. Without the pipes, sulfur deposits form more slowly and are less concentrated. With them, liquid sulfur flows from the pipe ends and pools and cools and solidifies into masses that the miners then break with iron rods. The company gets its sulfur more efficiently. The miners break it and carry it. The pay rate is calculated per kilogram carried out of the crater. This is an industrial operation embedded inside a natural wonder, inside an active volcano in one of the most seismically dangerous regions on Earth. The ceramic pipes are installed on a fumarole that sits at the edge of a lake with the corrosive concentration of battery acid. The industrial safety standards that would be required for a similar operation in most of the developed world would make the economics impossible. Here, the economics work because the labor cost is very low and the safety cost is minimal. That is the complete picture of the devil's gold. The Tangga people's relationship with Bromo illuminates something larger about how human beings inhabit landscapes of geological extremity, Most approaches to living near active volcanoes involve a combination of practical adaptation and a degree of anxious monitoring. Alert systems, evacuation plans, the constant background awareness that the mountain may do something. The Tangga approach is different in kind, not just in degree. The mountain is not a hazard to be managed. It is a deity to be honored. The eruptions are not disasters to be prepared for. They are expressions of the volcano's personhood, its power, its continuing participation in the relationship between the human community and the sacred ground they share. This is not naive. The Tangga people know what Bromo can do. Their villages have been damaged by eruptions. They have protocols for evacuation. They are not unaware of the physical reality of an active volcano, but the theology and the practicality coexist without contradiction in the way that things coexist in cultures that have been living with specific landscapes for long enough that the landscape has become part of the culture's identity rather than simply a feature of its geography. The Komodo dragon's place in evolutionary history is more interesting than the largest lizard alive description captures. The lineage of large varanid lizards, the group that includes all monitor lizards, was once much more widely distributed across the southern hemisphere. Giant monitor lizards lived across Australia and the Indonesian archipelago during the Pleistocene, a period when lower sea levels connected many of the islands that are now separated by ocean. As sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age, populations were isolated on individual islands, and as the climate changed and prey populations fluctuated, most of the giant monitor populations disappeared. The Komodo dragon survived on 5 small islands in the Lesser Sunda chain. The evolutionary pressure of island isolation and the specific ecology of its habitat produced an animal that is, in several important ways, more extraordinary than the animal from which it descended. The anticoagulant venom is not a single weapon. It is part of a suite of adaptations. Alongside the powerful claws, the serrated teeth, the muscular neck, and the exceptional sense of smell that makes the dragon the apex predator of an ecosystem with no other large carnivores. On Komodo and Rinca, the dragon sits at the top of everything. There is nothing above it. Raja Ampat's underwater landscape is not uniform in the way that photographs sometimes suggest. The variation between sites and between depths and between seasons and between the inner protected reefs and the outer reef walls exposed to the full force of the Indonesian throughflow is enormous. A diver who spent a month in Raja Ampat and dove every day would not repeat a site twice and would not exhaust the variety available. The shallow inner reefs, protected from strong currents, are the province of the small and intricate. The pygmy seahorses and the nudibranchs that sit motionless for hours on a specific sponge, camouflaged to invisibility, waiting for something to come close enough to eat. The outer reef walls, where the throughflow hits, are the province of the large and pelagic, schools of barracuda and trevally in formations hundreds of fish strong. The manta cleaning stations are their own phenomenon. Manta rays return repeatedly to specific sites on the reef where small cleaner fish remove parasites from their skin and gills and mouths. A cleaning station attracts multiple mantas at a time, and the mantas queue in their unhurried way for their turn, circling the station in a slow circuit, approaching it, hovering while the cleaners work, then moving off. The mantas at Raja Ampat, both reef mantas and the larger oceanic mantas, are large enough that a single animal's wingspan exceeds the height of most buildings a person encounters in daily life. And they move with a quality of complete ease through the water that is completely unlike any human movement through any medium. The encounter with a manta ray at a cleaning station, close enough to see the individual texture of its skin, is one of those experiences that resists adequate description in language, because language evolved for terrestrial experience, and the underwater world to which these animals belong does not have good verbal analogues. New species are still being described from Raja Ampat. This is not metaphorical. Genuine scientific novelty continues to emerge from this ecosystem. In 2018, an coelacanth was confirmed in Raja Ampat waters. The coelacanth is a fish that was believed extinct for 66 million years until a living specimen was caught off South Africa in 1938. There are exactly 2 species of coelacanth known to exist. One is in the western Indian Ocean near the Comoros Islands. The other was found in waters near North Sulawesi in 1998. The 2018 confirmation added Raja Ampat to the known range of this species, the discovery in one of the most intensively surveyed reef systems in the world of a fish that the entire scientific community had believed extinct for 66 million years. Raja Ampat is the kind of place where that can still happen. The broader context for Indonesia's biodiversity is the Wallace Line, a biogeographical boundary identified in the 19th century by the naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace, who developed the theory of natural selection independently of Charles Darwin, and who spent years collecting specimens across the Indonesian archipelago. The Wallace Line runs through the strait between Bali and Lombok, through the Makassar Strait between Borneo and Sulawesi. West of the line, the fauna is broadly Asian in character: tigers, rhinoceroses, orangutans, Asian elephants. East of the line, it shifts to being broadly Australian in character: marsupials, birds of paradise, cassowaries. The division reflects the ancient tectonic history of the region. The Western Islands were once connected to the Asian continent, the Eastern Islands to the Australian continent, and the deep water of the channels between them was a barrier that most terrestrial animals could not cross, even when sea levels were at their glacial lows. Indonesia straddles this line. Its western islands hold orangutans and Sumatran tigers and Javan rhinoceroses. Its eastern islands hold birds of paradise and tree kangaroos and cassowaries. The country spans one of the great biogeographical boundaries of the planet, containing on its own territory the fauna of 2 separate ancient landmasses, separated by deep water that was ancient enough to produce species that evolved independently on each side. This is what Indonesia is. Not a country that happens to have some interesting volcanoes and a famous reef. A place where the tectonic plates meet and the biomes collide, and the geology is still active, and the biology is still being discovered, and the people who have lived here for centuries have built cultures and ceremonies and practical adaptations that are inseparable from the extraordinary environment they inhabit. The blue fire burns. The ceremony continues. The dragons wait. The reefs hold. There is one more dimension of Indonesia that belongs in any honest account of it, and it is the dimension of scale in time rather than in space. The geological and biological processes that make this archipelago extraordinary are not recent. They did not begin when humans arrived. They have been operating for millions of years, and humans have been present for a fraction of that time. The 1815 eruption of Tambora, the largest in recorded human history, released so much material into the atmosphere that global temperatures dropped by approximately 0.4 to 0.7 degrees Celsius. Crops failed across Europe and North America. There was snow in June in New England. The cold and hunger of 1816, the year without a summer, influenced art and literature, including the summer in which Mary Shelley began writing Frankenstein, sheltering indoors on Lake Geneva because the weather was too cold and dark to go outside. The volcanic activity of a single Indonesian mountain in 1815 reached the creative imagination of a writer in Switzerland who produced a novel that established a literary genre. The 1883 eruption of Krakatoa produced a pressure wave that traveled around the Earth 4 times before dissipating, immeasurable on barometers as far away as Europe. The sunset colors it produced, a global optical effect of volcanic aerosols scattering light in the upper atmosphere, were reported in newspapers worldwide, and are believed by some art historians to have influenced the specific sky color in Edvard Munch's The Scream, painted in Norway a decade after the eruption, by a man who described the sky looking as if the sky were suddenly bathed in blood. This is what it means for a country to sit at the intersection of major tectonic plates. The geological events that happen here do not stay here. They move through the atmosphere and the ocean and the food supply and the literature and the art and the broader human experience of the world. Indonesia is not a self-contained system. It is a participant, an unusually powerful and unusually active participant in the planetary processes that shape the conditions of life everywhere. Indonesia is not separate from the world. It is deeply connected to it, in all the ways that the world's most biologically and geologically active country would be connected. Through the ash it sends into the atmosphere, through the ocean currents it channels, through the species it holds that exist nowhere else, through the materials it mines and refines and exports, or through the 270 million people who live on its islands and navigate the daily reality of a geography that is still being made. The blue fire burns because the earth is still active here. The dragons survived because the sea rose and isolated them. The reefs are the richest on the planet because the currents converge here. The ceremony continues because the people who live closest to the volcano understand it as a relationship, not a hazard. Indonesia is impossible. That is not a figure of speech. It is a place that should not exist in the concentration that it does, that should not contain within the borders of one country the blue volcanic fire and the acid lake and the sea of sand inside a collapsed caldera, and the last living dragons and the world's most biodiverse reef and the Wallace line and 130 active volcanoes. And yet it does. All of it, in one country, on the other side of the world from wherever most of the people watching this are right now. Go, or at minimum, look at it properly. It deserves the attention.